Hello everyone, this is Alonzo. Want to know how to get your first cloud job? Then please register for our webinar. We'll teach you everything that you need to know and answer your questions along the way. Hope to see you there. Hello everyone, this is Alonzo. Want to know how to get your first cloud job? Then please register for our webinar. We'll teach you everything that you need to know and answer your questions along the way. Hope to see you there.
My name is Richard Furr, and I can say I am cloud hired.
That yes, come and join and get cloud hired. I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
Hey, Go Cloud Architect family, I'm cloud hired.
So I'm cloud hired, guys.
So I'll just say I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired thanks to Go Cloud Architects.
It worked for me, and now I'm cloud hired.
Because of Google Architect program, I am cloud hired. See!
I am cloud hired. Thank you, Mike and the Glow Cloud team.
Welcome everyone. Today we're here for another Cloud Career question and answer session. My name is Michael Gibbs. I'm the founder and CEO of Go Cloud Careers. And I'm here with my good friend and Chief Marketing Officer, Alonzo Coleman. We're here to make sure that you have the absolute best cloud computing career. Early in my career, I was very lucky. I found 2 executive vice presidents at the tech company I worked for, and I asked them, what do I need to do to be highly successful? And they gave me some things. I discussed those things with my friends. My friends all thought I was crazy, but I asked 2 executive vice presidents. I followed their guidance, and I was a principal architect within 2 years. Quite frankly, I was a lead architect inside of 6 months, and I want you to have that kind of incredible career. See, the reality is if you have a map in front of you and you follow the map, you're going to get to your destination so much faster than if you just decided to drive around and maybe went in circles for a little while and then you looked around. So I want you to have that expert map, and that's why we're here. I've been in tech now for more than 25 years. I actually looked at my calendar today and I saw one of my first coaching clients from like 21 years ago got a new tech job today, and I'm thinking, wow, it's been 20 years, over 20 years of career coaching, and I love when you guys get hired. What we're going to do today is you can ask us any question you want, and I will answer them, and Alonzo will answer them to make sure that you have the best career. But before we get into the questions and answers, I want to tell you about 2 free things that we're going to do that are truly, truly going to change your life. Tomorrow, we are going to have a Cloud Architect Challenge. If you've done all your AWS certifications, or if you haven't, if you've been working in tech as a cloud engineer for the last 10 years, or if you're brand new, you're welcome. And we will test you. We will give you a real architecture, the kind that my students do every single day. And we're going to make you do the real cloud architect job. You'll have an executive present to you about their business. You have a very short period of time to ask some questions like we do in real life. Then you're going to have to design in high availability, high performance, high security, multi-cloud architecture. And of course, cloud architects don't just design it. They got to present it back to an executive community and a technical community. They'll have that chance to try and sell it back to us and convince us that we need it. If you know how to do this and you do a good job, you will be ready to be hired. And I'll tell you right now, go interview because you'll be hired. And if you're not, you're going to know exactly what you need to do, which is get proper architecture education. And again, this is going to be free. I promise you, you're going to learn more than you imagine. And it's, again, free. So please enjoy us. Love doing these things. And while we're at it on Thursday, we're going to have 2 Cloud Architect career webinars. We are going to know not only how to get your first Cloud Architect job, but we're going to talk about the skills that you need to be an elite architect as well to make sure that not only to get hired, because all my students get hired as long as they do the work. That's the easy part. But, there's getting hired and having a stagnant career, and there's getting hired and having an elite career where you take off and your career rises like a rocket ship. And that's what I'm all about, like rocket ship-like careers. I'm a performance guy, whether it was performance coaching, physical-wise, emotional-wise, leadership-wise, or career-wise. That's it. I'm all about performance. So make sure you ask us your questions. The shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. And I want you to have that straight line. So ask us your questions in the chat box. The reality is we get several hundred emails each day asking us career questions. People try to book consults with me. You can see what our consults cost with me on the website. There is an 18-week wait to get on my list. And that's why I come here completely free once a week and do that webinar once a week to make sure that you have the ultimate career. So please ask us your questions in the chat box. While we're waiting for this, I'm going to have Alonzo introduce himself, welcome you. Alonzo, why don't you take it from here?
Sounds good, Mike. As usual, it's always a pleasure. I'm seeing where everyone is from. It's just a real privilege just to be able to find out that people are from Cape Town, Lagos, Nigeria, the UK, London. We've got people all over, and taking the time to listen to what we have to say about how we can accelerate your development, accelerate your career, and being able to just formulate and compile all of these wonderful resources that we have, this knowledge, this experience, especially the competency, so that we can propel you even further for your cloud architect career goals. So we want to know your questions. Please don't hesitate. I think that the furthest or the quickest way is between 2 points, it's just that straight line. So the first step is to ask questions about what your goals are, how to get to those goals. How is your prior or your existing knowledge going to be able to help you propel forward? These are some of the basic questions that we have. And if you have anything more detailed and specific about career goals and so forth, lay them on out. We're all here for you.
And that's the key. So we'll answer your questions, but please ask your questions. We're going to have a great time tomorrow. All are welcome, and you'll get to know exactly the role. You know, yesterday I had the opportunity of speaking to one of my students. I had a post-hire check-in call that I was doing a coaching call with the session. Someone that never worked in tech that got a $170,000 first tech job after our training. And he was telling me, he's like, you know, Mike, he's like, not only do we never touch the tech, and not only is the job exactly what you told us of executive communication, leadership, sales, consulting. He said, but you're right. You should rename the cloud architect role the technology consultant role, because it has zero to do with all those certifications I got now that he's working. He said, in fact, it's complete opposite of that. He said, it's all about meeting people, finding their needs, presenting, selling, designing. He's like, just like you told me. He said, every class and every time I go to a new customer meeting, it's like I hear Mike Gibbs in the background in my head. Answer it this way. And every time I see somebody try and talk about tech to an executive, they get kicked out of the room. He's like, it's exactly what you told us. So we're going to be there. So we'll go over. If you want to know about a day in the life, you can ask us. You want to know what we can do, we'll ask us. You want to know how to be better prepared for it, we'll ask us. All I care is that you get the best jobs in the world and you rise to the occasion and that you have a career which progresses. And that's why we do these free sessions. So Tyrone in the background, who's also part of our team in Cape Town, South Africa. We love Tyrone. We also have Collins on our team as well. That's also in the chat box. Collins is so cool. I call him James Bond because he reminds me of Mr. Bond. He's like a cross between Idris Elba, who's kind of the coolest dude I've ever seen out there in movies, and James Bond. So Collins, we're thrilled you're here in the background as well, helping out. So Tyrone or Collins, bring us the first question. Mike Garcia, is the cloud architect role remote friendly and can it be done mostly remote? Well, Mike, I've been a remote architect now since 2001. And let's discuss what remote actually means, because remote for an architect and remote for an engineer are exact opposites, because let's face it, architecture engineers and engineering careers are completely different from each other. There's no similarities whatsoever. The cloud architect job is, generally speaking, remote. And what I mean by remote is there's no reason for you to go to the office on a daily basis. But the reason it's not easily outsourceable is you have to meet with your clients. So I lived in Palm Beach, Florida for most of my career. And in Palm Beach, Florida, let's face it, we didn't have a lot of multi-billion-dollar multinational companies, which are basically who needs cloud architects. So when I wanted to live in Palm Beach, Florida, here's what I did. I would go to the West Palm Beach International Airport, and I would fly to my customers pretty much every day. My weeks would start out where I'd leave my house in Florida. Maybe I'd go to Washington, D.C., do a quick executive briefing, fly to San Jose, do another executive briefing. The next day I'd be in England, doing, of course, some executive meetings. The day after that, I'd be in Dubai. That was the old days of remote cloud architect work, remote enterprise architect work, network architect, etc. Now here's the modern days. Now I can be home 50, 60% of the time because the video conferencing is so good. And if you work for a company, a lot of these companies like Cisco's got a great cloud, for example, and they've got a lot of cloud architects. So does Microsoft, so does Dell. There's lots of clouds out there. And I mention them because people think it's only 3 companies. Everybody's got a cloud now. And when you're one of these companies, they have even higher definition video that they use. So the reality is you're going to travel 30 to probably % of the time until you reach my level. And once you reach my level, you might as well buy your own airplane because you're going to travel so much. And the reality is because they're looking for someone like me to come in there to be the sweet spot for that $1 billion deal to really talk to the executives. But 90% of your career is going to be remote, but you have to be able to go to your client. So Mike, if you live in New York City, guess what? Remote is great because you're going to be driving to your customers or taking taxis or Ubers or whatever, trains or whatever you can do to get through that city. If you're in Atlanta, Georgia, again, big city, you're going to be able to travel less. If you're in Dallas, Texas, huge tech area, again, you'll be traveling less, lots of big businesses there. Same thing for Houston. But if you're in McPherson, Kansas, a town which I absolutely love in Kansas, super nice, friendly people, cheapest electric prices in the country, great place for a data center, one of the cheapest prices. But, it's a small town. Everybody knows each other. If I have a chance to go someplace in the U.S. on vacation, I'm going to go visit some friends of mine in McPherson. I absolutely love it. But there, you're going to be traveling all the time. So kind of keep that in the back of your mind. It can be done remote, but where the engineer sits behind a desk and codes and configures and touches the tech, we architects are designing, presenting, and selling. And in order to design a big thing, you got to go meet your customer. And there's a big difference, Mike, if you and I met in a boardroom, or you and I met at Morton's for some steak, scotch, and desserts and other things that you would normally do, than if we were separated by 10,000 miles. So to make that impact as architects, we have to spend a lot of time with our customers. So can it be done most remotely? Yes, but you're still going to have to get on site to meet your clients. Great question. If you have more questions, please let me know.
Brandon, I have zero IT experience, but may I watch tomorrow's challenge to see what the cloud architect job entails? Brandon, please. Please go.
And Brandon, I'm going to make this clear. No experiences doesn't matter at all.
Yeah.
In fact, Brandon, I get people with 20 years engineering experience and no tech experience. And you know what? It takes the same amount of effort to train them, and here's why. Architecture and engineering are so different. Now, and I've got a lot of students that are engineers, and I love them. The good news is they know the tech really, really well. What they don't know is how to pull the pieces and parts together, which is architecture. Likewise, I've got people with no background. Some examples are Noah Parker. I recently got him a cloud architect job. He was a very recent social worker. Vladimir was a young man. It's his first tech job. We got him as a cloud architect job. Al, first cloud architect job as a senior solution architect job at Deloitte, for example. We had Wallace recently get hired at JP Morgan Chase, no background whatsoever. Then again, Jennifer Eam was also working at JP Morgan Chase, no background in tech. Then again, Daniel Boso, the kid I always wished I could have adopted myself because I love this kid so much. He's 20-year-old fireball, also at JP Morgan Chase, first tech job. And, whether it be Balwinder, who was a stay-at-home mom who we got hired at Microsoft with no background. So, and Brandon, I can give you 50 more examples, or probably 500 more examples. But here's the thing. It's not where you start. I promise you, nobody was born knowing how to fly an airplane. Nobody was born knowing how to be a doctor. Nobody was born knowing how to be a lawyer, and nobody's born being a cloud architect. And for the people that think engineering experience is going to help them, I'm going to tell you right now. And we retrain engineers. And when we retrain engineers to be architects, they get big jobs. Like normally, the average salary is about $203,000 for a cloud architect. An elite one earns $500,000. And I'd say first jobs out of our program are between 150 and 200, except when we've got somebody with tech experience, and they come in around 300. But the key is, if I gave you a hammer, a screwdriver, and a nail gun and taught you how to use it, you still wouldn't know how to prepare a shopping mall. And engineering is exactly about building. And architecture is about design. In the same way, engineering, you learning how to use a hammer wouldn't prepare you to design a hotel or a shopping mall. Engineering does not prepare you for architecture because it's a different career. So you have no bad habits. You have nothing to unlearn. You're the perfect candidate. So please join us tomorrow, and you're going to absolutely love it. If you're a little overwhelmed, don't worry about it. When I first started learning to practice internal medicine in my old life, I was totally overwhelmed. And then one day it clicked. But join us. Please do so.
This is from Tyrone. Hi, what is the day in the life of a principal solution architect like?
Well, Tyrone, this is something I can really give you an example of. I was a principal solution architect within the first 2 years of my career, and I loved it. Here's what the day is like. I used to start my day early in the morning and get my physical training in because I got to be in shape. And the reality is most people in these elite jobs are in shape. So started out, got my physical training in. Next thing that I would do is I'd speak to some people in England or so about their business. And I typically would wake up pretty early, speak to some people in England. Then I'd put lots of times I would do my physical training, and then I would wake up and start taking care of people on the East Coast. And I would have a meeting with some clients in New York, for example, and then some meetings with clients in maybe Raleigh, North Carolina. Then after that, maybe I would go to a customer site and buy them lunches, dinners, and drinks with a credit card. And that was my day. The next day, Tyrone, I could be going to an office, and the office would be dependent upon where the customer would be. and I would get together a large number of people. So Tyrone, for example, let's say I was going to be asked by a global bank to design their next generation voice network, something I've done, or cloud system. You know, there's never one person that does this design. And the architect's job, realistically speaking, is to go in there and to build a team of all the best and brightest in minds through the world. Follows that African proverb, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So I would go on site and I would be like a meeting facilitator. And if any of you people have ever done any management consulting and you know what it takes to facilitate a meeting, architects do this, and at the principal architect level, we do it every single day. So I'd go in, I'd build teams of people, we'd whiteboard stuff out. It would be kind of cool, rooms full with whiteboards. They're called war rooms. Somebody would take notes, and then I would collect all the information, and that could be another day. The next day, Tyrone, I could be traveling to Australia, which is something I used to do all the time. Every time I had to go to Australia, I made sure somebody would take me to see a koala bear, because I love koala bears. So I'd go to Australia, and I'd do 5 or 6 days of pure meetings. Then Tyrone, I'd fly back. The next day I would be writing documents all day. The day after that, I'd be flying to San Jose, and perhaps I'd be meeting with clients, and I'd be doing what's called executive briefings, where you'd go to a special room and you'd have the VPs, the CIOs, the CTOs, the CEOs in a room, and you would talk to them about how you were going to improve their business performance with technology. And then our executives would come in to talk to their executives to show them the love, to show how much we talk about them. And there were days where I did that. Next thing I did, Tyrone, as a principal architect, is I built business councils. So for example, I led a 20-person global CXO leadership council. And what I meant was everybody was either a CEO, a CIO, or a chief technology officer in the group. And the reason architects like me would be in these rooms, Tyrone, would be as follows. I'd give them a presentation about a technology that we were planning on designing to help them in their business, and they would react and say, Mike, this isn't going to work. I don't want this. We're not going to buy this. Or Mike, what we really need is a solution that's going to deliver X, Y, and Z. So there were business councils. Now, the next thing that I would do, Tyrone, is I was always presenting at conferences. I was always speaking to the media. You know, you can see me right now constantly in the media, everything from Information Week to Forbes. And that's something a principal architect would also be doing. Writing thought leadership documents, speaking to the press, for example. And that's really what we're doing. So Tyrone, I would really say it's a pure executive job at that point. And it's really about mapping customers' business problems to various technology solutions. And at that level, we're about managing the other people, managing the engineers, the architects, and everywhere else that are there. So big leadership position, $500,000 pay on average at Google, $378,000 average pay at Microsoft, $372,000 average pay at AWS. But it's really an executive position where you know the tech. Great job. Great question, Tyrone. And please ask more.
From Nadim, I'm changing careers and I'm preparing for the AWS Solutions Architect Associate exam. Can I get a job with only that level of certification?
Okay, Naim, I want to separate the career versus the certification.
Yeah.
And look, the certifications are good. They're going to teach you some concepts about AWS. Now, Naim, we first need to know what job you want, because each job is going to have its own set of skills. And I'm going to tell you right now, 90% of those skills are not covered in certifications. So please tell us exactly what job you want, and then we can tell you exactly what you need to do. But the certifications are good because they're going to teach you some familiarity with AWS, but they're not going to be enough. For example, I'm just going to talk about the AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional. I know you asked associate. I'll talk of it in the context of a cloud architect. And if you want to be a different career, I'll tell you what's missing. So the reason it's not going to be enough to get a job is as follows. In a real architecture, we're going to be dealing with customer business problems. We're going to have the need for high security, for example. And the security solutions offered by AWS are not going to be good enough for the majority of your customers. Not that they're bad, but enterprise customers need enterprise-grade security services. So we're going to have to know that if we need to secure the systems, and as an architect we need to design it, we're going to go to the security companies, the Palo Alto systems, the Fortinets, the checkpoints.
Right.
And how to design those systems will not be covered in a certification. Now, on the architect side, the architect designs, presents, and sells a solution to improve the customer's business performance. And while the certification teaches you the name of a service and how to configure those services, architects don't really configure any services. We're not even allowed to touch the technology. We're doing system design. And in the certification, they teach you the name of a service and how to configure it, but not how to put them together. So for the architect, the system design is not covered in any of the architect certifications. I didn't make up the certifications. I don't know why, but they're just not. So system design, Niam, really means you need to know the underlying technology, how it works, and how to put the pieces and parts together. Unfortunately, they don't teach you any of the underlying technology in any of these certifications. So imagine you were going to build a house. You would need to know what the pieces and parts are. So the same thing. So Niam, what are those things that you need to know to be an architect? And 99% of these are not covered in certification. Well, first you need to know what is a cloud, which is also not covered in certification. And what is a cloud is basically a network in a data center that's been virtualized, where you resell it to somebody else. So what is that? It means networking. So what is networking? It means routing and switching, which means BGP is a critical skill that you're going to need to learn. Some interior gateway protocols like OSPF would be very helpful. IP addressing, subnetting, supernetting, route summarization, those kind of things, very critical, not taught in any of these cloud certifications. You're next going to need to understand what kind of WAN technology should I choose to connect the organization to the cloud. When do I use a private line versus a VPN versus software-defined networking versus SASE? Again, not covered in these certifications, including the AWS Advanced Networking, but you're going to need to know it. And because you're going to most likely be using a private line, you're going to need to understand switching. Switching means VLANs, VLAN tagging, VLAN trunking, port channels, ether channel, link aggregation group, spanning tree, rapid spanning tree. Again, not covered in any of these certifications. We teach it with all of our students in our Cloud Architect program, but certifications don't teach this. And that's why our program is 500 hours versus a 20-hour program for the Certified Solution Architect Professional. Now, next that you need to understand, because it's part of your architecture, would be DNS, DHCP, ARP, proxy ARP, those kind of things. Again, while I like the certifications, they don't teach them, but we do. Now, on the networking and the data center side, you're still going to need to know the following. You're going to need to understand servers and server virtualization, because how else are you going to move them to the cloud? You're going to need to understand containers and container orchestration. Now, beyond that, you're going to need to understand storage area networks, how they work, not how to configure them, because in the Certified Solution Architect Professional, they'll tell you about AWS Object Storage, S3, but they won't teach you how to architect it. So you're going to need to have a good knowledge of object storage, block storage, file storage, and understand how to work around the limitations of each. There's major limitations in each of these platforms, and you need to understand how to architect around it, and they don't teach these in certifications. We do, of course. Now, when you're done that, you're going to need to understand which business applications are going to improve which business performance. Remember, the job of the architect is how do I improve the customer's business performance with technology? And you're going to need to know, when do I use a unified communication application? When do we need an ERP application? When do we need CRM applications, for example, because we're going to need to know how to architect that. Now, we're going to need to know what kind of databases are going to give our customers the maximum performance, which means we need to have some knowledge of relational databases, NoSQL databases, data warehouses, the creation of data lakes, mapping and reduction of functions from one database to another. After that, we need to know about load balancers and how to architect them. Again, they really barely scratch the surface of those on the certifications. They talk about how to configure them, but not how to architect them. So you're going to need to understand them. Network load balancers, application load balancers, reverse proxies, those sort of things. And then your security stuff, which is not covered, such as your next generation firewalls, VPN concentrators, intrusion detection, prevention. Now, on top of that, now I am for the solution architect. And if you've got a different job that you're interested, tell me, and I'll tell you the skills you need for that job. Now, how do I put these pieces together to be one unified solution? Again, that's not covered in anything, but we teach it in our course, which is why our students get hired every single day. Now we just covered the tech piece, and I'm going to tell you right now that the architect job is 20 to 50% tech, and the rest of it is non-tech. And the people that don't get hired are the most technically competent that don't have these skills. So I'll tell you what they are right now. First, they're presentation skills. Why? Architects present. And in fact, on the interview process, you're going to be forced to deliver a presentation to get hired. No coding test or configuring test for architects, but there is a presentation. You must be good at it. Next is sales. We design, present, and sell, right? So sales is one of the 3 critical skills for ours. So you're going to have to know how to sell. You're going to have to sell to executives. You're going to have to sell to your customers. You're going to have to sell to your internal management to give you resources. Sell people to work with you and for you. So lots of sales. Now, there's going to be a huge there's going to be a lot of leadership skills because you're going to be building and leading teams. Now, when you communicate with an executive, you have to have executive presence. I'll show you with Alonzo real quick. Alonzo, my name is Michael Gibbs, and I'm a cloud architect with a lot of experience. Just look at Alonzo's face. He's laughing. He wouldn't even let me in his office.
No.
No. Alonzo, this is Mike Gibbs. I'm here to assist you like I've assisted organizations for the last 30 years. I've worked for Cisco. My clients have included the world's largest banks, the world's largest service providers, and I've been able to help most of them increase their revenue, decrease their operating costs, and enhance their profitability. Now look at Alonzo. He's happy. He's
got my attention. Yeah.
I demonstrated both executive presence and what's called CXO relevancy to show them what a C-level leader needs. Now, of course, there's executive writing, which when we teach all these things. So those are the skills that you actually have to have for the architect. So, for example, no, you can't get any of these based on a certification, but we could train you and easily get you hired. But that's the difference between certification and hired. It's not that certifications aren't good. They're great. But they only cover like 5 to 10% of the skills you need. These are the other 90% for the architect. Maybe he's told us the job he wants, Tyrone. If there's more, if not, let's get to the next one.
From Vishak, I am an ECE student. I would like to switch my career to cloud field. Please give me a roadmap from the beginning, from scratch, please. It would be really helpful.
Okay, Vic. So let me answer 2 questions. First, tell me what ESE means, because I have no idea. I'm an architect and I don't use abbreviations. For example, one of my students, before he learned architecture, told me he was doing VM. And I said, do you mean voicemail? Do you mean working with virtual machines? Do you mean vulnerability management? So in these elite careers, we can't use acronyms. We must speak in plain language. So I don't know what you want. Yeah. Now, you also said cloud career. Now, I want to make it clear to you, there's 1,000 different cloud careers, so we've got to be more specific. For example, let's say you wanted to work in the travel industry. You would need different training to be an airplane pilot, a flight attendant, an airplane mechanic, an air traffic controller, a hotel general manager, a front desk clerk, a hotel maid, and I could go on and go on and go on. So you need to tell us which career you want, because each of them require exactly different preparation. The same way a doctor and a nurse need different preparation. So tell us the job you want, and I can definitely tell you there. But also, if you want to be an architect, and here's the reason why I recommend being an architect, it pays the most, it is the most career advancement, and it's the job where you work the least hard. So for me, it's a triple whammy. Engineer, hard work. Architect, you're basically being paid to have lunches, dinners, and drinks with people and talk to people and play golf with people, and go to the Super Bowl and hold meetings and facilitate meetings. But we got to do what we love. So please tell me the career you like, and then I can answer. But until I know that, it's like you basically said, I want to come to America. And I say, where do you want to go? New York City, Miami, Baltimore? Where do you need to go? Or it's like you ask me, Mike, would you like to come see India? Yeah, sure. I'm a yogi, specifically in Ashtanga, so I want to go to Mysore where it was created. But it's been a while since I've been to Bangalore to talk to the tech community. But there's some friends that I have that are sitting in Delhi, so I need to know where I want to go. So tell me your destination, and we'll help you get there.
From Habib Ahmed, could you explain the latest 9,000 employees laid off by AWS in cloud computing and HR department?
Yeah, well, Habib, 9,000 employees laid off. It sounds like a lot, but the reality is it's nothing, and I'm going to explain to you why. What used to happen in tech, Habib, is the following. All employers stack rank their employees. And at the end of the year, they laid off the bottom 5 to 10%. And I'm also going to give you 3 sides of this. And what would occur is as following. All organizations got rid of the bottom 5 to 10%, and here's the reason why. The bottom 5 to 10% tend to frustrate people, tend not to do work, and they demotivate the motivated people. So started with Jack Welch. Alonzo knows the Jack Welch management days because he comes from that background, and he knows all about it. So organizations always got rid of the bottom 5%, 10%. Guess what? If you look at Amazon's number of employees, 9,000 is kind of like the bottom 5 or 10%. But Habib, if you listen to what we were telling you for the last 6 months on this channel, we told you that engineers were going to be getting laid off while architects were going to be hired. In fact, Habib, we stopped selling our standard engineering course about 6 months to a year ago for the following reason. We knew what was going on with the economy, and we knew organizations were going to getting rid of people that cost money. So Habib, let me explain the difference between an architect who's still getting hired and an engineer who's going to be getting laid off. And Habib, I think a lot more engineers are going to be getting laid off in the next 6 months, while my students as architects are getting hired every day. So Habib, I go work for Cisco, for example, and I did work for Cisco, and I meet with a client and I close $1 billion deal. Poof, I just brought in $1 billion of revenue to Cisco. I'm a hero. I'm getting my $1 million bonus at the end of the year, which I'm all kinds of happy about. Everybody's hugging and kissing me while I walk through the hallway. I'm everybody's favorite person, and here's why. That $1 billion sale that I just brought in is going to help pay for the salaries of everybody else that's working there. So Habib, sales reps aren't getting laid off unless they're not selling. Good architects are not getting laid off unless they're techies that aren't selling to people. So architects are still being there. Now, engineers, by comparison, and HR people cost money. So Habib, I got engineers, they cost money. So what you'll see is AWS has engineers in California. And they cost a lot of money. Let's say they're paying $150,000 for an engineer. Now, Habib, I can lay off that engineer in California and rehire them in India for 1/3 of the cost or 1/4 of the price. So poof, they're not going away, they're getting there. Now, what else happened recently, Habib, which is why we told you to avoid engineering? Artificial intelligence. AWS has their Code Whisperer. Google has their Bard, which doesn't feel ready to prime time for me, but it's getting there. Microsoft has ChatGPT and just dumped $10 billion into further advancement of ChatGPT. At the same time, they got rid of 10,000 employees. So why did they do this? Because programmers are not going to be needed in the quantities we needed. Cloud engineers are not going to be needed. Cloud admins are gone. DevOps engineers are gone. Bloggers are gone. Why? ChatGPT can do it. Now, granted, it's not perfect, but I've demonstrated to all of you guys months ago, because I told you the layoffs were coming for engineers, move towards architect roles. And I showed you ChatGPT would write a Python script, a Terraform script, spit out the CLI to configure things in AWS. So, poof, we don't need as many techies. Keep that in the back of your mind. Done. So, and now you've got the perfect storm. You've got an economic nightmare that's going on out there right now. Organizations are hiring salespeople, architects, sales reps, etc., and they're laying off cost centers, which means marketing, which means HR, which means engineering. And we told you this was going to happen. We were published in Forbes and all these magazines months ago telling people they were happening. If you'll recall, we had many special episodes where we talked about how to be good in a down economy. We talked about how to move to architecture and how and why to get out of engineering programs. And we also canceled our engineering program, stopped taking new admissions while we further trained our own people. And our engineers are getting hired. And you know why ours are getting hired when everybody else isn't? All of our engineers get the secret sauce of executive presence, communication skills, leadership skills, sales skills, emotional intelligence training. And those are those architect skills too. And when you've got all those skills, you become a lot more agile in your career, which means I can lay you off from your engineering job, but I can move you into a different job. So Habib, I expect a lot more engineering layoffs, and I expect a lot more architecture hires. And as more technology comes, the more and more architects we're going to need, and the less and less engineers we're going to need. So keep that in the back of your mind. We warned you about it 6 to 9 months ago. We were published in many major publications from Forbes all the way down, telling you this was going to happen. Unfortunately, now it's happened, and now you know why.
From another part of the question, is cloud computing a still safe career for the future?
Oh, cloud computing is probably the safest career in all for the future, because what's going on? Organizations are going to be reducing their costs, but not just any cloud professional, our cloud professional. So we also told you 2 years ago that everybody would be multi-cloud. Guess what? 98% of organizations are now multi-cloud. About a year and a half ago, we told you organizations were going to be using hybrid clouds because the cloud is more expensive than the data center if it's done wrong. And guess what? Now you're seeing these super clouds, multi-clouds, and hybrid clouds, just like we taught our students for the last few years. In fact, we were the only cloud architect program that actually teaches architecture, the business piece, and we made everybody build a cloud. And that way, when everybody else thought they knew how to configure something, we taught them how to build a hybrid cloud and a private cloud. Why? Because that's the future. So is cloud computing safe? Absolutely. It's probably the safest place to be, but not engineering. You always want to be in a revenue-producing place versus a cost-producing place. And it also, Habib, shows up on salaries. And I'll show you why, the salary piece. So an engineer costs me money. I'm going to say it again. An engineer costs me money. An architect brings me money. You know, Habib, if you go to a doctor, you go to a hospital to see doctors and nurses, and you're going to, it's this weird customer service thing. I used to practice medicine. If I have a patient that's sick and I want to admit him to the hospital, I admit them to the hospital and I write the orders. And the hospital charges that patient $100,000. And they made it because I made the decision to send my patient to hospital A versus hospital B. And if I were a complete and total horrible person and I went into that hospital and I screamed at the nurses, guess what? The hospital would still say, thank you, Mike, for sending us this patient. And they wouldn't discipline me for being horrible because I just brought them $100,000. By comparison, you have the nurse who's actually taking care of the patient and making them healthy. If the nurse says something mean to the doctor who sent the money, the nurse gets fired because the nurse is a cost. So be on the revenue producing side, not the revenue costing side, Habib, and you're always going to have a great career. And that's why architecture positions pay so much more, because they generate money. So while engineering typically tops out about 150 to 200, you know, you'll typically see this kind of thing as an architect with a couple of years experience. I was a principal architect in 2 years. Average architect salary of principal architect is $380 at Microsoft. But note there's a range of 300 to 500 or 300 to 495. This is from Glassdoor. And that's related to the person's interview techniques and how much and so soft skills, emotional intelligence, and business acumen. AWS is one of the lower paying cloud providers, but they have a good marketing team. 372 on average with a pay range of 291 to 491. Google pays far more. They pay 508 on average. And you can see the range here is 394 to 677. So, you know, can you keep that in the back of your mind? And that's the key. Anytime where you're getting involved in a lot of people management, like a senior director at Cisco, 527 on average, it's there. So focus on the people, focus on bringing people together, focus on revenue generating positions, and you will always, always, always have a job. Give you a little more guidance, Habib. Who gets laid off? The people that are unliked, the people that are poor team players, the people that were on Twitter quiet quitting, and the bottom 10%. So revenue safe, revenue generating, revenue costing not safe. Soft skills, emotional intelligence, not laid off, not a good communicator laid off. Emotionally intelligent person stuck around in the end. They want you to heal the environment, rough around the edges, laid off. So it's not the career that's not safe. It's where you position yourself and the skills that you learn. Now you know how to be safe, and by the way, earn an extra $100,000 to $200,000 per year. Tyrone, we can go to the next one. If you've got more questions, please ask them.
From Pernell Fuller, if a data center was hit by a disaster attack or the servers were destroyed, would it lose all the data that was stored inside of a data saved inside the virtual box?
Okay, so VirtualBox, I don't know what you mean by that. VirtualBox is this consumer-grade software you stick on your notebook computer.
Yeah.
If a data center is hit by a natural disaster, it depends. Mm-hmm. So, like, for example, I've seen certifications try to teach what I consider to be this worst architecture I've ever seen. And AWS will even teach you. They'll teach you to back up AWS to AWS. Here we go. Back up from America to Europe on AWS. Of course, if AWS gets hacked, the control plane goes down or the network goes down, you got nothing, something my grandmother would call bupkis. So don't recommend that at all. But, you know, Purnell, every good data center has disaster recovery. And it's typically a few thousand miles away, and it's done from another service provider. So I've got a bank, and they've got a New York data center. That data center goes down, guess what? They probably have a New Jersey data center. That data center goes down, they probably got a disaster recovery place in Chicago somewhere. It's a non-issue. If I'm using the AWS cloud and the Azure cloud as my primary clouds, I'm going to back up to the Google cloud or the Oracle cloud or SunGard or some other organization. Again, I'm totally good. So the key is backup, 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 backup. When you send a soldier out, they don't just have one weapon. They've got a primary weapon, they've got a backup weapon, they've got a backup weapon, and that's the key when it comes to data centers. Because disasters do happen. Hurricanes happen, earthquakes happen, fires happen. Planes could come crashing into a data center. You never know. I'll tell you one thing. Murphy's Law, the military is very familiar with Murphy's Law. Whatever can go wrong, Purnell, will go wrong. And that's why we've never taught single cloud. And that's why 98% of customers always use more than one cloud for that same reason. Because if your storage is destroyed, it's destroyed unless you back it up somewhere. So all well-run data centers are backed up in at least one place. Now, the reality is a really well-run data center, Purnell, is going to be backed up in 2 or more places.
Yeah.
And one, like I might back it up like a New York data center in New Jersey, someplace that we could drive to in an hour's time. And then I'm going to have another backup someplace that's going to be way off the beaten path. Like if a nuclear bomb hit the East Coast, I'm going to want it farther away. So that's the kind of redundancy that a good architect would build in.
From Ernest, can you tell us more about the Slack community? Thanks.
Why don't you talk about the Slack community, Alonzo?
Man. Okay, now Ernest, strap in because we have a global community from everywhere, from all corners of the world, who are participating in our development program, and we all come together across the board, across the spectrum in all sorts of ways when it comes to supporting each other in our endeavors. And it's only what I want to clarify is that it's not a public environment. This is for client specific. So if you'd like to participate, you'd actually have to be a student of ours. But the students, well, rather the clients of ours, and you're going to experience such a community of supportive people who come together and they see and spend time with each other outside, of course, to talk about cloud, to enjoy themselves, to enjoy the company of those who are fellow clients, be able to come together in study groups and help to edify one another. And this is all done in our Slack community with more than 24 different Slack channels to speak on all sorts of subject matters when it comes to new tech, when it comes to anything about cloud architecture, the new technologies that may be influenced by it, ChatGPT, a plethora of all sorts of different subjects. So everyone who walks, and then also for those who are privy to that, we also add new job opportunities that could possibly be something of interest for our clients that they can access with easy links when it comes to who's setting out the job, what the job entails, the title, possible salary requirements for that. I mean, we really, really fortify and provide every and all resources needed for our clients to be successful.
Absolutely. And in addition to the live classes, our students all do architect things.
Yes.
And they submit their assignments via Slack.
Yeah.
And our instructor team gives them feedback on everything. Because you can't learn by watching videos. It's not enough.
No.
You got to participate. You got to do the work. You got to get live. You got to have a coach to make you better. You're not going to see an Olympic gold medalist that self-works out. You're just not going to see it. You're not going to see a pro NFL player that decided to do home workouts in their home gym. It's a coaching thing and a performance coaching thing. And that's why we do what we do. So we've got a community. It was actually started by Chris, my chief operating officer. And we've got students getting together. I mean, they're interviewing each other. They're doing just incredible, incredible things. And this thing is active. Let me tell you, this community is active. Great questions, Ernest.
And this is from Alan. Does an architect role require knowledge in any coding languages? No.
Alan, I'm going to make it clear.
Goodness.
We are not allowed by our employers to touch our customers' technology. We design, present, and sell. So I've been an architect for 2.5 decades. You know when the last time I touched the network ever? 2.5 decades ago, because architects are not allowed to. So Linux, not our skill. Terraform, not our skill. Coding, not our skill. Configuration, not our skill. CLI, not our skill. Design, present, and sell. So Alan, it's just like the building architect, the person that designs the hotel. They don't get taught how to use a hammer. They don't get taught how to dig ditches. They're not taught how to do landscaping. They're taught architecture. So no touching the technology. And Alan, I hate to say this, there's all these boot camps that charge $5,000 to $10,000. And they're teaching Python and sysops and DevOps. Yeah. In fact, Alonzo and I interviewed somebody just the other day from that took thousands and thousands of dollars of training. They were an AWS community leader, and we asked this person architecture questions. They knew the code because they were working DevOps engineer, but they didn't even know what architecture was. And it's not that it wasn't a wonderful person, it was, but it's just a different job. So design, present, and sell. Say it with me, everybody. Design, present, and sell. So Microsoft Word, we do use a lot of. Microsoft PowerPoint, we do use a lot of. Microsoft Excel, we do use a lot of. Whatever your email client is, personally I use Outlook because I learned how to use it 25 years ago. I know how to use it. Whatever you're going to use for your calendar, and we may use a drawing program. I personally use PowerPoint for all my architecture diagrams, and then I hand it to a graphics professional to make it look elegant. Some people use Lucidchart, some people use Draw.io, some people use Visio, but if it doesn't involve design, presenting, and selling, so entertaining a client with dinner, sales. Going to a meeting, sales. Giving a presentation at a conference, sales. Writing a thought leadership paper, sales. Meeting client. Building a team of people to design it, but you will never touch the technology. That is engineering, not architecture. Good question, Alan.
From Purnell, again, is there a difference between cloud and virtualization?
Well, virtualization is a technology that enables you to chop something into multiple little pieces. So let's say I had a giant box. My cat Cindy would jump right in it and she'd be really happy. But my cat Cindy likes to jump into smaller boxes because she's real snug in there. So if I took a giant box, used some box cutter knives and some tape and created 4 smaller boxes, that's virtualization, sharing the resources of the big box. So 30 years ago, we had VLANs, which was virtualizing a switch. In 1970, IBM enabled server virtualization by time-sharing mainframes. That was virtualization. Then in 1999, VMware invented the hypervisor. And if you actually really look at a VMware environment, that's truly like a private cloud. Now, the difference between virtualization and the cloud is the first clouds were just networking. And now a cloud is a virtualized network in a data center. So that's what a cloud really is. It's a virtualized network and a data center. So virtualization could be just one thing. The cloud is virtualizing an entire data center. So that's the difference. But in order to virtualize the data center, you have to have virtualization. So they're very similar. It's just the cloud is virtualizing everything, whereas virtualization could just be with a single thing.
From James T. I signed up for the Architect Challenge, but I'm not ready to participate. Could I still join to listen and take notes? Absolutely. This is what we're not expecting people to be challenged or participate in a challenge and they have a tremendous career of cloud architectural knowledge and competency. We want those who feel that they're ready to be able to vet their knowledge based on whether they've been a client of ours or they've gone externally for their own edification. But if you're not ready to participate, we encourage everyone to just join in, participate. It takes a village for us all to come together to learn, grow, and be the people that we want to be. So if you want to participate and get in the game, that's awesome. If you just want to be proverbial in the stands and just watch, that's great. Take notes. This is a part of your learning process, and we encourage everyone to join in. This is from Nelson. Hi, Michael, and hi, Coleman. I'm changing careers. I have a nice tutor in AWS architect. However, permit me to ask, how do you determine which cloud platform is the best fit for a beginner like myself?
Okay, Nelson, I'm going to try and make this clear to you. There is no such cloud platform that's best.
Yep.
What you're really asking me is the same thing as, which food should I eat for dinner? Or which car should I drive? I want you to understand the cloud. So if your tutor is not teaching you the cloud, you need to find somebody that is. So if you understand what a VLAN is, you're going to understand how to deal with a wide area connection to the cloud, whether it's the AWS cloud, Azure cloud, or the Google cloud. If you truly understand server virtualization, you will understand what a Nutanix virtual machine is, what an OpenStack virtual machine is, what a VMware virtual machine is, what a AWS EC2 instance is, an Azure virtual machine, an Oracle virtual machine, or a Google Compute Engine instance, because it's the same tech. If you truly understand CIDR notation and CIDR ranging and route summarization and aggregation, subnetting and supernetting, it doesn't matter if it's a Cisco router, a Juniper router, a Palo Alto router firewall, a Fortinet firewall, the AWS cloud, the Azure cloud, or the Google cloud. It's the same technology. So where people go wrong is they learn AWS, or they learn Azure, or they learn Google, but they don't learn the cloud because the certifications don't teach it, and then they're not prepared to do anything. So Nelson, learn the cloud. Nelson, I don't know if you drive a car, but if you did, which do you think would be more important, to learn how to drive a car or to learn how to drive a Honda? Mm-hmm. What's the best cloud? The reality is this. If I pit AWS and Azure up together and Google says, I want the business, and they buy the business by offering the biggest discount for the same stuff that's on everybody else's cloud, for that, customers, Google's the best cloud. Now, AWS and Azure lost that deal and they're angry, so the next time they give a cheaper price on Azure. Guess what? Azure's the best cloud. The next time it's AWS. It's all the same. Mm-hmm. So Nelson, if you had to buy an apple and you had 3 grocery stores and you asked me which grocery store is best, I'd say, what's closest to you? Now, if you wanted to get a certain grade of meat, and this one only had the best grade of meats, and this one had a cheap grade of meat, and this one has medium, then you'd know where to go. But for the most part, there was a song from The Who, meet the new boss, same as the old boss. All the clouds are the same once you change the name. So learn the cloud, and then you'll learn all clouds. The last place you should go is the certification. The first place you should go is the underlying technology. If you're learning it on the basis of just a cloud provider first, you're not learning anything. Because when you learn the cloud, they hide the underlying technologies. And if you don't know that, you don't have anything. So don't learn to drive a Honda, learn to drive a car. And that way, wherever you go, you're gonna be fine.
Mm-hmm. And then let's also consider, like Mike mentioned before, AWS has a phenomenal marketing team. But look at it this way: if you're so focused on understanding all the nuances of becoming a successful AWS, and I emphasize AWS solutions architect, understand that 98% of organizations use multi-cloud. So if you're not understanding the underlying technology and you're pretty much niching yourself into becoming AWS specific, you're going to look like a lobbyist. You're going to look like someone who might not have and understand the full breadth of what technology or the cloud specifically can offer for organizations who are not interested, or they need more options outside of AWS. So the overall emphasis of that, focus on the technology, not the cloud service provider and their certifications. And I say that objectively and not with any type of malice.
Brandon, once enrolled, are the live trainings able to be watched later if you missed? Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Is there a time limit on finishing the program? No.
No.
You're in the program until you're hired and you intend to study 8 hours per day or recommended. Brandon, here's the thing. All I care, all Alonzo cares, all Chris cares is that you get hired.
Yep.
We record every single class. And quite frankly, I want you to go back and rewatch the classes that we just went to in class to capture more. And not only that, Brandon, you can go back and watch the last close to 300 classes that are still there, because they're also there as well. We do 150 live classes per year for our students, and you can watch the previous 2 years' classes also. Now, you are in our program until you are hired. We have close to 100% hire rate for the following reason. We're not like those evil people. They charge you 20 grand, they kick you out after 16 weeks, and then we have to retrain you after the fact because they didn't teach you what you needed to know and they kicked you out when you were premature. We are a get hired program. We will teach you and you will stay in our course and you will be hired. Hired for us is graduation. Look, I could generate any worthless piece of paper for you and say you attended our course, but that's not what we do. We get you big jobs with proper training and give you a great career potential. So no, you'll be in our program. Now you can stay in the live classes for a year. If you need to be there for more than a year, then the live classes, you can extend that for a small fee. But for the pre-recorded content, for the Slack, for all of it, you're there until you are hired. And you will be hired in our course as long as you do the work. You will be hired. How much should you study? It's based on you and how fast you learn. What I don't want anybody doing is getting burned out. I want everybody to get through that program as fast as they can because time is money. Every day you delay in signing up is basically costing you $800. How do I get to that $800? The average cloud architect earns $800 a day or $16,000 a month. If you wait 2 months to get started on your career, the net cost to you is $32,000. So whenever you get through, the faster, the better. I want you getting hired again and again and again and again and again.
Also from Brandon, are there smaller companies that hire architects often, and will it mostly be these FANG type companies?
Okay, Brandon, I'm going to make this very clear. The FANG companies are the smallest employers of cloud architects.
Yep.
They're honestly almost nothing compared to the reality of it. Every business has to use technology to have a competitive advantage. Actually, let me take that one back. When I started working in tech 25 years ago, a company that was digitized versus had a competitive advantage of those that weren't. In today's modern world, if you are not digitized as a company, you're out of business. There's nobody making it on paper and pencil anymore, for the most part. Anybody that does not want to have their own data center, and actually even people that have their own data centers now are still running their own clouds, needs a cloud architect. So every bank needs a cloud architect. Every global retailer needs a cloud architect. Every consulting company has thousands of cloud architects. Any oil company is going to need cloud architects. Anybody who's anybody in the economy. Now, Brandon, I will tell you, businesses of less than 5 people typically don't need cloud architects. And here's the reason why, Brandon. It's going to be cheaper for them to go to Dell, spend 10 grand on a server and run everything on the $10,000 server than it would ever be to go to the cloud. But any real business in the entire world is going to have cloud architects. And guess what? Many of those businesses pay far more than the FANG companies. Because if you're a bank, I remember one year Goldman Sachs' average bonus was $600,000. Not their salary, their average bonus. I worked in the banking industry. Why? Big bonuses, right? And why will banks promote the biggest bonus? Because a minute of downtime to a bank can be $1 million. So banks are willing to pay for the people that know how to keep the systems down. And the people that know how to keep the systems from going down are the people that know not to do the stuff in the certification courses. Because they're proprietary and they lock people into a single cloud, and you can't do a single cloud if it matters. So no, every business needs a cloud architect for the most part. We run our own cloud. We run an OpenStack cloud. Which we built ourselves because it was 80% cheaper. And C cloud architects do that too. They run private clouds. Public clouds, we use some public cloud for our business, for our website, private cloud for other stuff. Just like most organizations. We'd love to get you to your goals, Brendan.
Al-Haji Ba. Hello, Al-Haji. I remember you. I'm in the program, and if there's anyone And if there is anyone looking for a place to learn, this is the place. Thank you so much. Yeah, I remember speaking with you.
Thank you, Elijah. And I know I see you in class all the time, and I love working with you. Thank you so much. We love our students, and we can't wait till you're hired too.
From James T. again, I'd like to start making LinkedIn posts on leadership and possibly personal development. Is there anyone in the program who proofreads so we don't create career-ending content?
Okay, James T., let me give you some guidance on that. Writing the right content will boost your career. Writing your wrong content will destroy your career. In our program, we have LinkedIn training, and it does not begin in the beginning. I know where you're at, Wise, and you're basically at the beginning, and you need to go long more into the program before you even think about making a LinkedIn post. And inside of that course, in addition to the great LinkedIn training we do, you can and should ask other peers of you to proofread your concepts and help each other with their posts to make sure that they're good. I don't recommend picking another newbie. I recommend that everybody find a buddy in the course, which I talk about all the course. The Navy SEALs, when they go through BUDS, have a swim buddy. They live and die by that person. They're carrying the boats with their swim buddy. They're swimming with their swim buddy. They're running with their swim buddy. One guy's not doing great, they're dragging him along because you got to do it. So find a swim buddy. But, that would be great. But don't find a newbie, because the only thing a newbie can do is basically be a grammar checker. You need more than a grammar checker you need to talk about. Now, every once in a while, I catch my students making a post that's pretty scary, and I tell them about it when I can. Like last week, I had an emergency class because somebody posted something on LinkedIn, which would not have been good for them at all. But the reality was, we're adults. We train you to be adults. And throughout your career, you're going to need a team of people. So start building it now. So I've got the Slack community. That's why we run these classes. Start building them now. But you're not ready, James, to start making posts for it, because I know where you're at. You're not even close to ready. Please pass on that until you get a little more knowledge. Because otherwise, you're not in a position to talk about digital transformation. And the last time I checked, unless you've led large teams, wait until you've got some more leadership training before you talk about leadership.
From Alhaji Ba, what is the difference between a cloud architect and a solutions architect?
Alhaji, I'll give you two definitions. First, solution architect is a meaningless, worthless term. And why is it a meaningless, worthless term? It can be anything. So, for example, there are solution architects that sell cell phones. I know solution architects that sell carpet. I know solution architects that sell Cisco gear. And I know solution architects that sell AWS gear. All in all, a solution architect is somebody who works for a company and only recommends the stuff from the company they work for. Now let's talk about that in terms of today's world. 98% of customers use more than a single cloud. Now, AWS has their own version of a cloud architect, which isn't a cloud architect at all. At AWS, their equivalent of a cloud architect is a solution architect. But for the rest of the world, a cloud architect is someone that designs multi-cloud solutions. So while a solution architect can only work, like an AWS solution architect only has one company they can work for, AWS. If they work anywhere else, they're a cloud architect. A cloud architect like we train, we've got students in AWS that are working at AWS, Azure, Google, Cisco, IBM, Accenture, Deloitte, Capgemini, KPMG, Barclays Bank, BBC, Apple, and a whole bunch of other companies, because all of them need cloud architects. Cloud architect, multi-cloud solution architect, I only sell for the stuff for the company that I work for. Great question there, Logic.
From Fahad, I am sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. Which are cloud, like DevOps, data analytics, security, or something else to be the best for a remote job?
Okay, so it depends where you're at.
Yeah.
If you're in a developing world, India, Africa, Pakistan, I would say things like DevOps are wonderful. Cloud engineering are wonderful. But if you are in the US, the UK, or Canada, I would not be there. And here's the reason why. Businesses look to find the best people at the lowest price. Let's say I were to go to Lagos, Nigeria. I have a tech community. I have enormous education in Lagos, Nigeria. I have perfect English that's spoken in Lagos, Nigeria, and I got a lot of people that want to work. Now, if I'm a CEO and I need 1,000 cloud engineers, and I've got a choice of San Jose, California, or San Francisco, where the average home is $1.49 million, or Lagos, Nigeria, I'm probably going to go hire my remote people from Lagos, Nigeria. So for DevOps, for cloud engineering, for software engineering, organizations are going to outsource it to parts of the world with lots of education. Cape Town, South Africa, lots of education. Bangalore, India, lots of education. Punjab, Pakistan, or India, lots of education. Asia, so where I can get a person that's very educated in a lower cost of living state. 100,000 US dollars is equivalent to approximately $28,000 in India. Mm-hmm. So instead of paying $150,000 to somebody in America, I can hire 6 people in India for the same pay for engineering roles. For architecture roles, I can't outsource them because I need somebody that's going to go to the customer site. So there's that. Data analytics, I don't know. Security, I'm not going to be outsourcing my security 3,000 miles away or 4,000 or 6,000 miles. So for purely remote, I wouldn't be security. But it's really geography dependent.
Yeah, I'm just imagining how you're doing security with all that latency from the other side of the globe. So much could happen between in there. The Indian Rail, part 1 of 2. I worked 6 years with 6 years experience in India's biggest IT company and want to switch careers from BPS/BPO to IT internally. Acquired skills like GCP, have GCP, ACE certificate, basic Linux, SQL, and Python. Okay. Part 2 of 2, still no one entertains me with the new role, and every project asks for prior relevant experience. What can I do to make a move?
The Indian Rail, please tell me what career you want.
Yep.
You just mentioned IT. IT is 1,000 different careers. And you only mentioned a list of skills which may or may not be relevant for that career. And the Indian Rail, I'm going to give you a real secret. You can have all of that. If you don't communicate well, present yourself well, and you can't explain the technology that's in your head, there's still nobody that cares. Because, I don't know what you know as a hiring manager until you communicate it to me. So please first tell me the role that you desire, and then I can tell you how to get there, but I need a map. Because right now you just said IT. Right. I didn't know whether that means security, DevOps, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and a whole host of 1,000 other things.
Right, and then we want to make sure we clarify all acronyms as well. So being able for us to understand, and just like you would communicate or get information from a prospective client, being as succinct but boil it down to the full understanding so that there are no gaps in the communication or you misconstrue anything that could be detrimental to the architecture or overall workflow of the program.
Yeah, like translate BPS, for example, BPO. I know what you mean by the Google one. Oh, planning to become a cloud architect. Okay, the Indian Rail.
Okay.
So, all that stuff you told me, I hate to tell you, is not relevant at all to being an architect. To be an architect, you need to be a business executive. Linux, completely irrelevant. Could you bring those other skills down? I'm Tyrone, so I can see what the Google Associate Cloud Engineer, 100% irrelevant. SQL, 100% irrelevant. And Python, 100% irrelevant. The Indian Rail, a cloud architect designs, presents, and sells a technology solution. So attend our webinar on Thursday, and we'll tell you what you need. But I'm going to tell you the first thing. You can have the best tech skills in the world, but if you don't have executive skills, you are not an architect, you are an engineer. So first, leadership skills, sales skills, executive presence, executive communication skills, the ability to do an ROI model, the knowledge of how to respond on an RFI, RFP, RFQ, the ability to sell, the ability to speak at a conference, the ability to lead large teams, architect skills. Now, knowledge of the network and the data center. How do you design these pieces and parts? How does server virtualization work? Not how to configure it. I don't care if you configure anything because you're not going to configure everything. How to design it. So for example, I'll give you the difference between engineering and architecture, and please join us on Thursday. Now, this is engineering. Alonzo, ask me how to configure BGP.
Mike, thanks for joining us. Would you explain how to configure BGP for us as well?
Sure, Alonzo. I'm going to go to my Cisco router, and I'm going to type config T. Then I'm going to type router, BGP, and I'm going to put my autonomous system number, say 65312. Then I'm going to put a neighbor statement in to identify my peer. Neighbor 192.168.1.1, remote AS 65313. And then I'm going to advertise a route, network 10.0.0.0, mask 255.0.0.0. Now, that's not architecture, the Indian row. That's engineering. Now, Alonzo's going to give me an architecture question, which is the exact opposite of engineering. Now, ask me how I'm going to load share across two equal cost direct connections without getting out of order packet.
Well, Michael, how are you going to use BGP to get out of order packets?
To not get out of order packets, Alonzo, two private lines, and we don't want out of order packets. Here's what we're going to do. Well, we have two options. We have one option where we can send one subnet on one link and another subnet on another link and an aggregate address on both links. We could also take one subnet on one link and change the local preference of it. And we could take a different subnet on the other link and change the local preference of that. Alternatively, I could change the weight of one subnet on one link, or I can change the weight of the other subnet on another link. Now, we could also manipulate the trafficker by prepending the AS path. We can make one AS path a little longer by prepending it for the non-preferred subnet on one link, and likewise prepend the other subnet on the other link to make that look less attractive. Now, also, we could play with a multi-exit discriminator. For example, we can use a lower metric for the subnet that we want on one link versus the subnet that we want for another link. So the Indian rail, you can see, I'm not talking about the technology ever. I mean, I'm not touching the technology ever. I'm talking about how to do it. So if you went in there and you did a Red Hat certified engineer, guess what? We're not going to ever touch the Linux ever. Now, as an architect, I need to know what Linux is. Probably be good for me to understand the Linux kernel and how it works, but you're not going to see me on a Linux terminal typing super su minus, putting in a password and type yum install Apache or yum install HTTPD. That's engineering, not architecture. So if you've got all these architect and coding skills on your resume, and then you apply to an architect job, which is a business exec job, you just told me you're not an architect, and I can't hire you. So it's all about the non-technical skills. So like somebody I got hired the other day, no tech background whatsoever. Before he got to me, he had a program that had all this stuff on it. He took a master's degree or a bachelor's degree in cloud computing, and nobody was interested in him, so he came to me for training. We had to get rid of the Linux, the SQL, the Python. Now that he has his first job, he's like, you know, Mike, everything you told me was correct. We had to get rid of all the coding. We had to get rid of all these certifications because nobody wants them as an architect. And I can tell you this all the time. We get people hired every day as architects. You can't train to be an engineer to be an architect. You got to do something else. So it looks like you asked another question. Let's get to that question. Tyrone put up the last part of this question.
Okay, still no one entertains me with a new role in every project asks for prior relevant experience. What can I do to make a move?
And that's not the one.
Something else. Okay. Sorry for the mixed cues. I want to enter into IT sector via the cloud computing path. You can suggest me the initial role. I can start with my skill and always ready to add more to my bucket.
The Indian rail, I don't suggest that. I tell you to pick the career that you want and then get the training that you have. I can't just take someone that did some self-study with Linux and hope that I can find them a job. I can't. I can make sure that you have the right training for the job that you absolutely want. Now, with what you told me, you may or may not have the skills to be a cloud engineer or a cloud admin. And you could try your hand at that. You really could. But why would you ever do a job that you don't want? You don't become an airplane pilot by working as a flight attendant first. You don't become a doctor by working as a nurse first. You get the education you want for the career you want, and then poof, you get it. You can't work your way up. I've got people that have 30 years of engineering experience that I have to retrain to be an architect because it's a different job. So what do you want to do? It's not like you just add more to your bucket. It's different skills.
Right.
Pharmacists don't become doctors without going back to medical school. Airplane mechanics don't know how to fly planes. So what would you really, really want to do? That's the answer.
Yeah, and you know, we could go all across the board to get you where you need to go, but that would be you. If you're flying, you want a straight flight. You don't want any layovers. So, to that very quick example, we're asking, what is it that you want to do, so that we can give you the best path towards your career and success.
Yeah, and the reason it matters is an architect with a couple of years of experience is going to earn 3 times more as an engineer. And I hate to say this. I speak to C-level executives every day and every week that say, Mike, I don't want an engineer as an architect. Don't bring me a techie. Bring me a business executive that understands the tech. And when I have people that have an engineering background, half of the work that my marketing executive, Alonzo, over there does with our students is tries to rebrand them so people don't think they're engineers. We all hold MBAs, and Alonzo's got 32 years of marketing, then it really does a lot to help rebrand our students. So the bigger question is, what do you want to do? Let's say you lived in Delhi and you wanted to get to Bangalore. Would you fly to Australia, New York City, Cape Town, London, Nigeria, the Cayman Islands, only to go to Bangalore? Or would you figure out how to get to Bangalore, assuming you're in Delhi? If the job you want is an architect, get architect training. If what you have here is just a spewed off list of skills, it's still probably not going to be enough for any job. You're going to have to figure out exactly what the job is. For example, if you wanted to be a cloud engineer, I don't see any infrastructure as code skills on there like Terraform. And I don't know what your networking knowledge is, for example, if you wanted to be a cloud engineer. I don't know. And again, those are the kind of things which you would need to know, which are not covered in something basic like the Google Professional Cloud Architect certification. So the key is, what do you want to do? But pick your career. Don't try and learn on the job. You can't. I've been retraining people for 20 years that thought they could learn one skill in one job and get another job. They don't. So tell us what you want. For the cloud architect thing, attend the How to Get Your First Cloud Job webinar on Thursday, and we'll tell you exactly. If it's a cloud engineering thing that you want, you can tell me, and I'll give you that list too. But it's not, I know this, so I'm going to go look for what I think I can do with it. It's, what do I want and how do I get there? If I was going to coach if I was going to coach a football player, I wasn't going to say, hey, you got some muscles, you're going to be a lineman. I'm going to watch the person move. Do they have speed? Do they have agility? And I'm going to coach that specific position for them. So same thing for you. Tell me what you want, and we can tell you how to get there, but it's not what you start with.
And for B Spence, can you recommend a laptop with decent specs to be a cloud architect, especially to take your class?
B Spence, it doesn't matter what your laptop is, and here's the reason. Look, I've heard people talk about cloud projects, and they give people silly business of setting up a virtual machine on their computer. You don't do that. That's not real virtualization. That's a type 2 hypervisor. That's not what architects like me use. Anything that you have, B Spence, that has internet access is all you need. You're going to have to be able to watch videos like you're doing right now. So whatever will help you watch videos is good. Now, you will need a computer strong enough to type a Microsoft Word document, an Excel spreadsheet, and make a PowerPoint presentation. And if you were going to do any other drawing, you could use Draw.io or Lucidchart, which is online in your browser. Again, nothing that you need to worry about because the computing power is done somewhere else. All the servers and virtualizations and cloud building that you're going to be doing, guess what? You're going to be remote accessing into our data center. And by doing so, guess what? All the work is done on our systems. So the reality was, when we started this course, we knew, for example, that the average person could not spend $2,000 to $3,000 on gear to be able to do it. So what did we do? We built a data center of the coolest equipment in the world, and you just VPN into our data center. We set you up with VPNs, and you can do anything. So B Spence, we'd love to work with you. As long as you have a computer, guess what? You'll be fine. Mm-hmm. Any computer that has internet access. And I have one of my students, Eddie, when he came to us, he had a 10-year-old computer, and he was able to he was able to do whatever they needed with that 10-year-old computer.
From JC, how to get your first cloud career job? How about this? Ping me, just got my first AWS cert and I'm studying for architecture associate right now, and we'll have that in 30 to 45 days. I need somewhere to get good part-time.
JC, they don't have part-time tech jobs. These are full-time tech jobs. In order to get a good job, you are going to need training. And I don't mean just training on how to use those. You're going to need proper training specific to the career you want. Attend our How to Get Your First Cloud Job webinar, and we can tell you how to become a cloud architect. But you can also tell me what career you want. But nobody's going to hire you part-time, and nobody's going to give you volunteer experience, and here's the reason why. If I were to hire somebody part-time that doesn't know their job, here's what's going to happen. They're going to make a mistake, and they're going to cause millions of dollars of damage to a business. No business can afford to lose multiple millions of dollars for no reason because they wanted to hire somebody that has no skills. I hate to say it. So the question is what can you do? So the key is, what career? Now, you said you want to be an architect. Now, again, you're talking about Linux and CM and CDNs and data center. Okay. Now, if you've got 20 years of data center background, that would be good. Again, you're not going to get a contract architect job. You can do contract data center jobs. And here's the reason why. Architecture has nothing to do with your ability to configure a VMware server. Architecture has nothing to do with whether you can write a Python script. Architecture has nothing to do with whether you can configure BGP on a Cisco router. Architecture has everything to do with how you can design these systems and put them together. Now, I don't know what you've done in the data center. That could be big background that you have. But what was it? Were you working on the storage area networking side? Good. That means you know storage. Were you working on the virtual machine side? Good. I already do clusters. I don't know what that means. That's not something an architect would understand. I mean, are you basically just setting up a couple of servers behind a load balancer with that? Or are you setting up and designing the system? So again, this is where we need to go to. There's a big difference between architecture, which is design, and engineering, which is hands-on. Now, Jay, I'm going to tell you right now, you may actually have all the tech background, and even still, in order to move into an architecture role, have you had sales training? Do you know how to build a business case? Do you know how to respond to an RFI, RFP, RFQ? When was the last time you presented at a conference? Have you worked a booth at a conference? What have you sold in the past? What teams have you designed? Those are architect skills. But I can't ask somebody to do a part-time job. I can't ask for a volunteer. And that's the reason. You can do contract jobs, sure, absolutely, in your current field. But I can't hire somebody for a contract either, because I hire a consultant. That's even more dangerous. Here, work on my cloud. Now, as a contractor, they don't have the mentorship for the first few months. Here you go, have at it. Again, make a mistake, take the system down, millions or billions of dollars of damage. And I've seen it. Say, Jay, find somebody that can train you for the career you want, and then switch into it. I'm not going to take a nurse that's been a nurse for 20 years and say, guess what? I'm going to give you a part-time job as a doctor. Now you've got years of experience. You got a certification. I'm going to send them to medical school. I know all about this. I used to be a nurse before I learned internal medicine. Same, poof. Likewise, I've had I had an engineering background, and I had to learn architecture because it was a different job. So realistically, that's the key is the consequences of the actions, especially with architecture. If you make this architectural trade-off, what will it do? Now, the good news, Jay, is I've got people like you with 20 years experience in the data center that get $300,000 jobs after we train them. Plenty of them. So the key is, what you need to do is take what you've done, which probably is more than 40 or 50% of the people that have done out there in terms of the tech. Then go from the tech piece to the architecture piece, which is taking a step back. So the architecture piece is how do you put all the pieces and parts together, but we don't touch the technology. So think about this. Think about how you would set up your load balancers. What if you need speed? Okay, network load balancer, that's nothing. What if you need intelligence? That's an application load balancer. What if you need both? That's where it starts to get tricky. How are you going to design your demilitarized zones for your security? I promise you're not going to use AWS WAF and Shield unless you feel like getting hacked and having your replacement thank you for the nice job. But there are certain things that you could do. What does the organization's end-to-end security policy need to be? What kind of training needs to occur of the users? What does the statement of work need to look like to deploy, to build for this architecture? Why do you need multiple clouds? So the cloud architect and the enterprise architect are really, really similar. And it's the business and it's the digital transformation. So what you told me was a lot of great engineering, and I love that. I really do. But see, where the engineer focuses on building, kind of like the construction worker knows how to use that hammer, screwdriver, and nail gun, for example, and the building architect shows up in a suit, not a hard hat, and presents a blueprint and a little model that was made by an artist, it's just a completely different job. So cloud architect, enterprise architect, how do we improve the business? And how do we improve a business? As an architect, we ask the customer about their business problem, what their goals are. We evaluate what their competitors are doing. From there, we ask the department heads, the VPs. We we do things at the ground level. Then you know what else we might do? We might actually try to buy something as a customer to get a feel for what it feels like. Then we design the end state in terms of mapping out the people, processes, and technology. And then we figure out what cloud and non-cloud technologies are actually what we're going to use to get things done. That's the job of the architect. Then we're going to write it up. We're going to present it. We're going to spend the next 2 months or 3 months or 6 months negotiating the contract. Then once it gets sold, we are off to the next client or the next project. So come on Thursday to the How to Get Your First Cloud Job webinar, and you'll be good to go. Okay, so Alonzo's muted, so I'll read it. So what's the difference between a solution architect and an enterprise architect? If they're a really good solution architect, they're the same, but most are not. The solution architect, I only know AWS. How many companies do you think you can work for with that? AWS, it's the only company. The cloud architect can work anywhere. Anywhere. So the enterprise architect is typically a director. They are typically one of the higher paid architects. I worked as an enterprise architect for a very long time. Enterprise architect, 80 to 90% business, and 10 to 20% tech. Cloud architect, solution architect is 20 to 50% tech, and the remainder is business. So in either case, they're mostly business positions, but there's more tech in the solution architect or the cloud architect in some cases. But a really good cloud architect or solution architect doesn't focus on the tech, they focus on the transformation, and they're doing the same job as an enterprise architect. And guess what happens when they do that? Poof, they start earning enterprise architect salary.
From Alan, starting from scratch with barely little IT knowledge. How many hours of your program before job ready?
About 500 hours is what our average student does. It takes a good 500 hours or so to get somebody job ready and hired. 8 to 12 months on average for our average student, because we have 3 live classes per week. And with all the projects and things you do, it typically takes about 8 to 12 months. And it's about 500 hours of our content that you need to go through. And maybe another 500 hours of studying on your own. 200, 300, 400, it depends on you and how fast you learn. But we've got the content and we can get you your goals.
Rissa Tenero, hi Mike, Alonzo, Chris, Tyrone. It's Andrew Daniels from Go Cloud Careers. Just wanted to pop in and say hey to you all. Looking forward to the challenge tomorrow. This will be the first time I get this involved. Awesome. We're always glad. Thanks for stopping in. We're looking forward to having you participate with that. I think you're going to have a lot of fun. And from Brandon, part 1, my college major was interpersonal communication. with a lot of presentation and speeches that I excelled in. I love helping people, and I feel like I can sell myself, but never had a sales experience. Does architect sound like a good fit over another IT focus? I like what you have said about a day in the life of an architect.
Brandon, what you want to do is what's a good fit for you. So here's the thing.
He also has leadership and management experience.
Yeah. So Brandon, it sounds like you're already in the right track, but Brandon, I like to make it clear. My perspective is it doesn't matter. One day I was practicing internal medicine. The next day I decided I wanted to be in tech. And I was. And I didn't start out at the bottom. When I went to WorldCom at the time, they were the world's largest internet service provider. Now they're Verizon. They had 4 levels of network engineers. Network engineer 1, 2, 3, and 4. I was a network engineer 4 as my first job. I have Daniel Boso, and I love this kid. And why do I actually do it? Talk about him. He was 20 years old. He had no background, didn't finish high school, and he's now working as a cloud architect. Your background is optimal. You like people. You've led people. And you've been, you know how to sell yourself. You're going to be someone that's going to skate through. But the point is everybody can learn, but your background is fantastic. I will tell you, anybody that's had a leadership background is the easiest person to get through my program. Anybody that's had a sales background is easy. Anybody that's a good communicator is easy. And you will do wonderful. And Brandon, just 3 weeks ago, I had somebody get their first job as a senior solution architect, and they had a background that was similar to yours, where they had a communications background and a leadership and a management background. They had a little more sales background, but the point is you'll do great. Love to work with you. Truthfully, I hope to see you in class this week. You'll do great.
This is from Miles, currently studying for the AWS Solution Architect Associate Certification. I have a Master in Electrical Engineering. I've been working as an electrical engineer for 5 years. What is the best way to become an architect?
Miles, you're going to have to get training. And here's the key. You're going to need the right education. So I'll give you 2 paths. Take our course. For 3 days, you'll be through the program. For our course costs 3 days. 3 days average pay for our average graduate. That's going to be the right way to do it. The alternative is, if you don't want to take our program, you have to understand what the architect job is. The architect job is meet with a client, ask them about their business goals, their business pain points, their business challenges, then lead a large team of people to design the solution, then present it back and sell to them. So if you are with us, that's going to be the cheapest way. If you are not with us, the reality is it's going to cost you $50,000 to $100,000, and I'll tell you how to do it if you're not with us. The easiest thing is to join our Cloud Architect Career Development Program. But if you're not with us, you're going to have business acumen. Now, why? See, Alonzo is my customer, and he tells me he wants to increase his sales by 3%. Or he's got a low employee productivity rate. Or he tells me that I've got an inefficient supply chain model. And as an architect, I need to know what that means. So, if you're in our program, we will teach you all those business skills. If you are not with us, go get an MBA. In either case, you're going to be fine. Now, outside of the business acumen, I have an MBA. Alonzo has an MBA, and Chris has an MBA, but we've all taken leadership training on top of that. Outside of the MBA, and I had to do this. This is what I did, Miles. I took almost $100,000 of the following training: executive presence training, extra management training that's not part of it, CXO relevancy training, sales training, and presentation training. It's all in our Cloud Architect Career Development Program, but if you're not with us, after the MBA, do that. Now, Miles, if you're with us, we will teach you all of the network and data center things. If you are not with us, you can go to Cisco Learning Academy and learn networking. The CCN, somewhere between the CCNP and CCIE will get you there. Then you can learn the data center technology. And you can learn some of that from VMware, because they're really good data center people. You can learn some of that from IBM, some of that from Nutanix. Now, you're still going to need to learn storage, area, and network. So learn it from us, or learn it from Dell EMC, and they've got some good training on storage, area, and networks. Beyond that, you're going to need to know load balancers. So You can get that from F5, or we cover it in our training. Beyond that, you're still going to need to know security. So you could either take our course where we go heavy into security training, or you can find yourself a good place like Fortinet or Cisco or Global Knowledge to teach you cybersecurity training. Now, when you're done that, Miles, you're still going to need to know how to put these pieces and parts together. So you could take our course, or again, you could take architect training, which is somewhere. Global Knowledge could do some. We put this course together for the following reason. I didn't want people to have to pay $50,000 to $100,000 to be a good architect. And Miles, I hate saying it, every day we've got people that pay $10,000 to $30,000 that took training courses that didn't cover the business acumen, leadership, pay sales. For example, Daniel Bosu spent $35,000 to a boot camp. And guess what? We had to retrain him. Delroy spent $8,000 for a boot camp. And guess what? We had to retrain him too. And I could give you 50 different examples of people that we've retrained that spent $5,000 to $50,000 and years of time. I even have people that have done master's degrees in cloud computing, and we had to reteach them because they were taught engineering. So that's the path. But attend the webinar on Thursday, and guess what? You will learn how to be the ultimate cloud architect. You will learn a list. We'll give you a bulleted list of everything that you need to know. And guess what? You're going to do great on it, and you will have a career of a lifetime, and it'll be the best thing you've ever done. And I'll tell you, you're going to love it so much. And when you get that first bonus check that comes in as an architect, and you either pay off your mortgage for it or buy a Mercedes in cash, you're going to realize exactly how great this job is.
From Ernest, thank you, Mike, Alonzo, and Chris. I've just signed up for the Architect Career Development Program. I'm so excited to be working with you. Ernest, we are ecstatic to have you as a client. We are looking forward to working with you. I think that once you get ramped up and once you start the initial program, you are going to be excited not only to be working with us, but your overall career. We provide a full spectrum of experiences for you to learn about the technology, the business side of it, plus our community as well, with people all over the world who are excited to be working with people who, whether you've just started or whether you've been established in the community for a while. So I think you'll be very impressed. So welcome.
Welcome, Ernest. I can't wait to meet you.
And this is from Indian Rail. I am an engineering graduate in electronics and communication, have networking knowledge. Just because of my few wrong decisions in my initial career, I've landed in an entirely different career path. Okay. And now I want to move to IT via the cloud computing profile and struggling to begin or find a entry path, I guess. I have a very small learning curve for technical stuff. Please suggest my best possible path.
Again, I have no idea. Again, we need to know which job you want.
I think
each job is going to have a different path.
He's mentioned he wants to be a cloud architect.
Well, first he said he wanted to be an architect, and then he said, if I don't have time for that, what can I do quickly? And again, each one of these jobs, the Indian Rail is going to require a very specific thing. So I need to know. Airplane pilot, flight attendant, hotel general manager. Every one of these jobs is different, and it's not what you have. It's what you will need to get that job. We need to get real specific. Where do you want to go? Because I want to help you, because otherwise I'm just going to spout off stuff, and it's going to sound like one of the people, it's going to sound like a certification provider. Just learn some Linux and Python, and you'll be good to go. And you won't be. And I can't give you blind advice that's bad. That's just not who I am.
No,
we're experts at architecting cloud solutions, business solutions, and careers. And expertise takes information. Otherwise, it's the wrong architecture. And that's why, while we're at it, the cloud architect's most critical skill is the communication skills. Because I don't care how good your engineering is and how good your tech skills, if you can't get the right problem, your solution will always be wrong. In programming, they called it garbage in and called it garbage out. In architecture, it's all don't have the right information, we have the wrong solution. And I don't want to hurt you, because just trying to give you the generic stuff that you'd get in a Reddit group, learn Python and DevOps, you'll be unemployed 10 years from now. And I want you hired, but I need to know what you want. It's not where you started from, it's what you want to do.
Today. Yeah.
Where do I want to go? Otherwise, which airplane do you want to get on?
From James T, would it be a good idea to make a group of all the new students? I'd like to build a community to help hold myself and others accountable. James, you don't need to limit yourself to exposing all the new students. I think what the best exposure you need to is go seek out those who've been there.
Yeah.
Look at a lot of what their goals have been, or rather their timeline is. How are they holding themselves accountable? Find people who are knowledgeable and further along, so that you can learn from their experiences through learn from experience as well as observation, because all a group of new students will be is an echo chamber about what you all don't know, what you need to learn, and you're not going to get your questions answered by asking a bunch of new students. So jump in, do the work, expose yourself, introduce yourself. The first opportunity for you to get good at speaking and engaging is asking people in the community for help, finding out what their goals are, trying to align yourself with what they're trying to do, review your timeline based on the assignments, find out how you can leverage what we already have for you. So don't be intimidated. Don't feel like you are alone, because all of us are going to get further along together a lot faster than you trying to isolate yourself or find new people who fit into that profile to help you engage. Jump in there, James. There's no other way, because we provided the quickest path. There is nothing out here that exemplifies how to get from ground zero to becoming a successful cloud architect. So please adhere to the schedule, adhere to the assignments, jump in, align, introduce yourself, network, come together as a group with people that are closer in your neighborhood or your overall city. Just jump in.
And I'm going to add a little more to this, because James, I hate to say it, that was one of the most dangerous questions I've heard all day. And I hear a lot of them throughout the week. I don't want you to be with a bunch of people that don't know anything. That's the worst thing that you could possibly do. There used to be a photo, it was called Parable of the Blind. And basically you got a bunch of blind people holding on to each other running around. But none of them know where to go. So I'll say this again, I've made posts about it, I wrote articles, I taught a class about this. Don't ask someone that's not there. Like, who do you get advice from? You don't get it from an associate architect who's never even had the job. You don't get it from a junior architect that's had it for 3 months. You get it from an architect that's got 25 years experience, because they already know how to be successful. You get it from a senior director or a principal architect, not a beginner. You don't put junior athletes and rookies and the pros that are seasoned in different training programs. You put them together. When you teach a martial arts class, you put a black belt with a white belt. Why? Because the black belt helps the white belt go along. If it's all newbies, nobody knows anything. It's like the AWS community builder. They've got somebody teaching it that's never held the job with a whole bunch of people that have also never held the job, and they're all together and they're all lost. Believe me, I've had to retrain a bunch of AWS community builders because they don't know. So please don't self-isolate yourself.
No, do not do it. Do not
with
do
the
it.
people that don't know. Put them together with the people that are there. And that's why we retrain people that do these kind of things and put them together, and they get great jobs. So the key is, don't put yourself with the newbies. If we wanted newbies separated from newbies, we would have done it. You know, Chris, me, and Alonzo, and we're not the only people, have a $600,000 education between us and 60 to 75 years professional experience. The reason we put them together is for following. If you go with people that don't know, you won't know either. You are the summary of your 5 friends. Who do you want around you? The best and brightest of the world to rub off on you, or the people that haven't learned it yet? Don't be with the people that haven't learned it yet. Be with the best and brightest. That's why we're super effective compared to other people. They stick newbies with newbies, and newbies don't know anything. We stick newbies with experts, and everybody knows. That's why when we're doing the architecture projects last week, which are going to be presented this week and next week, wherever Chris has got that scheduled, we have people of all walks of life. Somebody that's ready to graduate versus somebody that's brand new, because I want you all getting hired. And you're not going to get hired isolating yourself with the people that don't know. All you're going to learn is what not to do, not what to do. So we intentionally did it this way. Doctors are trained together. You have fourth-year residents and third-year residents and first-year residents and interns in the same group. They all teach each other. Martial arts courses are taught the same. Pro athletes train with each other. That's how you do it. So, and that's why we do that the way we do it. I wish we had more time, but I think we need to close it here. But the point is all of you can get the jobs that you want, but you have to have the right skill. It's not what you have now. That doesn't matter. You know, last night I had a cheeseburger on a whole grain English muffin with my wife and then like 3 pounds of broccoli. You know, today it's Monday. I wanted to eat something healthy. I'm not eating a cheeseburger. I woke up, I practiced my yoga, then I did my physical therapy, and I feel great. The cheeseburger is yesterday's diet. Today, I had my shrimp, my egg whites, my broccoli, and all my vegetables, and I'm healthy again today. It's the same thing for your career. What do you want to do? And you'll be in good shape. Kind of keep that in the back of your mind. So be good to yourself. You can do anything. I promise you, all of you can do anything. You just have to set your mind to it. So set your mind. Whether it was Daniel Bosu, and I love this kid because he was 20 and he didn't even finish high school and he's now working as a cloud architect, or Pritipal Seth John, who was an amazing engineer for 20 plus years, who we retrained to be an architect. You're still going to get there. It really doesn't matter. If you're a big data architect like Praveen, our amazing student, I love this guy, he's amazing, and he wanted to be a cloud architect, he came to us, and now he's working as a cloud architect for JP Morgan Chase. Why? It's a different career. You need different training. You know, I know nurses that wanted to be doctors, and they went to medical school, and it didn't matter that they were nurses for 20 years. They had to start at the same place. All of you can do it. I promise you, all of you. I'm also going to tell you right now, the cloud architect job, in my experience, is the best job I've ever had. I practiced internal medicine. I've been a management and strategy consultant. I've been a sales engineer and a network engineer. And they're all great. But for me, architecture was wonderful. I love it. I've been architecting people's careers, architecting people's healthcare, architecting people's wellness plans, architecting people's networks, architecting people's data centers, and architecting people's clouds. And you can do it too. So get the right training. Join us tomorrow on the completely free Cloud Architect Challenge. And you'll learn what architecture is. I think you're going to like it. You'll also learn the massive difference between engineering and architecture. And if you're one of these people that's done a lot of Linux and Python, join us. You'll see the difference. And if you're brand new to the career, guess what? Join us and you'll still learn what it is. And this is going to be similar to what we teach in our class. This is going to be similar to what I've done for the last 25 years. This is similar to what our architect students who get hired almost every day tell me in their roles. This is the same thing that was published in CIO magazine, what we're teaching when they asked, what is a cloud architect? This is the same thing that chief information officers and CEOs and VPs of companies tell me they want an architect. This is the same thing when cloud providers send somebody to our class to talk to our students and what they're looking for. Exactly the way we teach it. And that's why I came out of retirement to build this course for you guys. Because I love when you all get hired. And you will all get hired with the right training. So I know I'm a little passionate about these things. And I feel I seem like an Energizer bunny and a little aggressive on this. It's because I want you to have the best life. It's because I know that the distance between 2 points is a straight line. And I know that we can keep you on your goal. So got to know where you want to go to get there. You want to be an architect? We can easily help you get there. So take care, everybody. I'll see as many of you as I can on the Architect Challenge tomorrow and the How to Get Your First Cloud Job webinar on Thursday. We're rolling 2 on Thursday, so all of you can come. Take care, everybody.
Take care, everyone.